Hello, good morning, filmmakers. Welcome to the Black Magic Collective's panel on how to make a successful short film. We're here with Sarah, and Sarah, I've known her for a very long time, like at the point where I was basically making a movie on no money, and you volunteered to come by for like a day and do something on it for no money.
It was great. Jen is a doer. Jen gets things done.
Thank you. Well, I've known Sarah as an actor for a very long time, and I love that we are now going to talk to you as a producer, writer, actor about a film that I just watched. I think I watched it 2 weeks ago, and I immediately was like, we need to bring you on and talk about this. It's a film that I knew you had talked to me very early on about it. You were doing this film that was based on your brother's suicide. Am I correct on that?
Yes, it's more based on my grief journey surrounding the loss of my brother. Yeah.
And so when I was watching it, I expected something I did not get. I got something that was, like, someone tells you, I'm making a movie based on my experience. You don't think you're going to get something that's also funny and charming when they're surrounding this topic, which makes sense because Sarah's very funny. She's known for being funny. And that's what I want to talk about. And all the filmmakers and actors who are watching this, I want to really push in this next half hour. I want to push this home. You need to find a way to tell your stories using your strengths and your passions. She could have easily done a horror movie. She could have easily done a very drama heavy movie, but she didn't. And that's why this movie works. And this is why it's going to be at a bunch of festivals. And it's been selected as I believe you were pick of the month for Black Magic Collective Film Festival. Am I right in that?
Yes.
So let's talk about this. Let's start with the script. Obviously, every film starts with a script. And how did you choose to write it this way? Where did this come from? Tell us about that process.
Well, for years and years, I had this idea because I sketch comedy was, my world kind of coming up. And it was like, I need to make a comedy about suicide. And people in my circle were like, yeah, that it fits you perfectly. Yes, you do. And
I want to stop really quick. I just want to say to everybody watching who may listen to this later on the podcast, we are not making light of suicide. Suicide is a very serious thing. And if you're feeling depressed or suicidal, we encourage you to get help. But we are going to talk about it in light based on Sarah's processing of her own grief and the way she shot her movie. I just want to be clear on that.
Yes, right, same. To be more specific, I wanted to write a comedy about grief. Maybe not suicide. It was based on my experience losing my brother when I was 20 years old. And he was 24. And it was just like, how can grief is so ridiculous and makes us do some funny things in retrospect, maybe, whether it's, I remember paying bills and not signing the checks. And this is back when we used checks for bills, and they, would send it back. Just like different things that, I always noted and was like, I'm going to use this in the future sometime, telling this story. And I knew telling my story with my brother was too close to home, and that wasn't going to happen. But telling the story about my grief process through the whole thing, and the continuing grief process, was something I could do. And so, it's kind of a dark comedy. We actually had to cut a lot of the comedy for time because, speaking of festivals, all I heard was like, it's got to be shorter. It's got to be shorter. Shorten it, shorten it, shorten it, shorten it. And it is, I heard it from every single person. So I'm like, I have to shorten it. And it was 24 minutes and now it's 15. And it was very helpful to hear that. And also it makes a tighter story. But we did have to cut a lot of the comedy. So it's a dark comedy about grief, not about suicide. Suicide, the story is between a husband and a wife. And she goes through all the stages of grief and what might be some ridiculous ways. So, you know, the message is that everyone grieves differently and that's okay. And it's so nonlinear, and you might hit a couple stages twice and you might hit a couple stages early, and that's okay.
I feel like with this film, one of the reasons it works is because you found a way to tell this story in the short amount of time. You've got the element of, you basically have told us someone's committing suicide without ever saying it. Like, there's just a lot of things you do that are very clever in the storytelling. Did you work with somebody to write the script?
I did. My loving fiance was just kind of like, why aren't you doing this? Because I was like, I'm not writing it. I'm trying to write it and I wasn't writing it. It was just such a block. And he was like, then hire someone. And it was like, we're so used to like grind. We got to do it all ourselves. And I was like, yes, I'm hiring someone who can help me get this on the page. And so I worked with Sasha Alexander and Dana Schaff, and they're a writing duo. And I told them my story. There was a lot of discussion and collaboration, and we got it down on paper. And then I kind of took it from there and kind of molded it using all of our ideas. And I'm so grateful, because I remember thinking then, just the script, I'm going to treat this like a class. The money I'm putting out, I'm just going to treat it like a class, because I'm going to learn so much from this. And boy, did I.
Well, yeah, you're investing in yourself. And I try to encourage people to do that all the time. Like, you cannot do this by yourself. And sometimes I love that you've pointed out that you had this idea forever and you couldn't figure out how to even get it started. So you pay some money to somebody who helps you get it on paper, and then you can shape that idea. So filmmakers who are watching, step one in the process of making a successful short film, you don't have to be alone even from the beginning with the writing process. So that's great.
Yeah. And coming from sketch comedy, like I'm really good with like writing in a group and like that kind of collaboration. And also getting out of my ego, that let people who know how to do something better than you do it. And so when people are like, oh, aren't you going to direct it? And I'm like, no, absolutely not. No, I'm going to hire somebody and they're going to do it, because someone that I trust, you know. Also, it's too many hats. I was already a lead writing it and producing it. So I was like, I'm going to let someone handle the directing.
Before we get into how you picked that person, so let's talk about the producing. So now you've written the script, and I think this is, if not your first time producing, it's your first time producing something of this magnitude. Is that accurate?
Yes. Yes.
So what did you find was the hardest part of that process?
Kind of it being my first time. So a lot of things were new. You were incredibly helpful. I was reaching out to Jen all the time. Like, what does this mean? Can you help me with this? Because I'm a worrier and a perfectionist, like a lot of creatives, and I didn't want to mess it up. And I did a crowdfunding campaign, and we raised like $26,000, and I felt a lot of people were counting on me, so I didn't want to mess it up. But really, it was using my resources, asking people, who did you work with that you loved? People that I trusted, and that's how I got, you know, to the places of working with the people that I did, which was such a great decision. Yeah.
You brought on other producers in the beginning?
I did, because one, I knew I needed help. And so I hired Kelsey Goldberg and Alexander Billet, and they were paramount in helping. Like, the crowdfunding alone was like a full-time job for like, it's wild. It's wild. So yes, they produced it with me until like shooting. And then our director, Megan Brotherton, also became a producer.
That's great. So how did you go about hiring your director? That's such a hard position, I feel like, because you're basically handing your baby over to someone and handing your trust over to them to make this project. And I will say, watching it, I was like, these are some great effing choices. Like, I was really appreciating, and as a director, often I could be like, I could have done this better. But I was literally watching like, wow, like she really did this film justice. Is that the collaboration between the two of you? Was a lot of that from her brain? And how did you even decide to choose that director?
Well, first I asked the internet, like Facebook, all my industry friends, what directors do you love? And it was very important to me to hire a woman or non-binary person. And so I conducted interviews. I had about 15 to 20 interviews with people on Zoom. And Megan Brotherton was someone I already knew, and everyone else was strangers. And so it's just so interesting that I ended up going with someone that I already knew after doing all this research on so many other people. But it was the right fit because Megan and I knew each other for a while, but we also weren't in each other's lives in a super close way. Like every day, that it might feel a little too close to home to have someone super close to me telling me what to do. And her husband, Kevin Schlanzer, is the DP, and they are a duo and a team. And so to answer your other question, the shots and the directing, a lot of that was Megan and Kevin. They have a really, really great eye. And I was just as specific as I could be with certain shots that I saw in my head, and they were just able to execute them really well.
That's lovely. Did you draw storyboards or anything sort of illustrating your original ideas? Because even the fact that, you know, with the legs hanging and things like that, it's so clever and tastefully done, which is a hard thing to do with this kind of movie.
Yes, we had hours and hours and hours of conversation about walking this line. Which for those, you know, who haven't seen it, this person is followed around by the image of her husband's hanging feet, and representing grief, the feet, metaphor for grief, popping up and disappearing. And what was the last question?
Well, I know, I want to know so many things. Well, I think it's basically right now we're at the point now, for those of you who are watching, we'd love for you to start adding questions. And if you have them, because we have about 15 minutes left, so start bringing them. For the directors, what Sarah has basically brought to us now and said the way she hired a director was, one, she didn't know them already, but two, it was a trust factor. And I think that comes with the knowing somebody, which is why I'm always encouraging directors to go out and make friends with everybody. Because it doesn't matter if you haven't worked for that person before, or sometimes even if they've even seen your work before. If they trust you and like you and feel comfortable with you, it's almost more important than the work, to be honest. But then, of course, you got to have something to back up to show you can do the work.
Yes.
And then the second part of that was that you had the DP was very important. Now, in this particular case, it's a DP director team, husband and wife duo. But it's so important for producers to let their directors pick their DP. That's kind of the point I want to push home with that, is because Sarah's film is beautiful. It's beautifully done. It's tastefully done. It's beautifully directed, beautifully shot, beautifully acted. And that comes a lot from the trust that the team has together.
Yes.
And the way they can work together. So
yes, especially with such a sensitive topic, the people that were working on this film wanted to be there. And that makes such a difference. And our assistant director, Kate Fogarty, who you know is amazing. And there was this intimacy with this kind of topic. And so many people have personal experiences with losing someone. And there was just a lot of support there. And whether it was your film was about something dark or heavy or not, that support and collaboration is so important, to have someone who doesn't have an ego and can come and really collaborate to tell the best story, not their best story.
Yeah. So Dennis, I know we kind of touched on this, but Dennis asks, how did you go about finding the producers? Was it the recommendations? Can you dive a little deeper on how exactly you found them and decided to hire them?
Same thing. I reached out to filmmakers that I trusted, Jen and some other women, and then posted on Facebook. And looked at the people who I trusted and who they were recommending. And then I researched each one and then reached out to the ones that I was interested in working with to have a Zoom conversation. And that's how that happened. And then again, coincidentally, ended up going with producers that I already knew, even though everyone else were strangers. And I knew Kelsey from sketch comedy and knew that we would work well together without the egos. So that was a big point in choosing that team, Kelsey and Alex, to work with.
And directors and filmmakers who are out there, when you're creating your own project and you are hiring producers, because usually the thing is producers have a project, they hire a director. But in our case, in the indie world, directors are often hiring producers. And I think their key is, again, it's the trust. Does your gut say yes? Is there a red flag that you're feeling? And sometimes producers can be lovely people. It could be a beautiful human who you love, but that doesn't mean they're the right person.
Great.
So, yeah.
Yes, that is correct. And I didn't know. This was all my first time with something of this kind of, not professionalism, but this, what would you say? Like weight and like gravity and contracts and, all those kinds of things. I didn't know I was supposed to hire my director first and let my director help pick producers. I didn't know. I thought I was on my own doing all of this. So I had my producers first and then went with my director.
Which I think I think that's fine. I think that it's just a matter of like, everybody needs to know what's best for you. The worst is when people hire producers and then crew and then cast and then go, oh, we should get a director, which, believe it or not, has happened more than it should in my career.
That I don't think I would do.
Yeah, it's crazy talk. So before we get into sort of post and festivals and all that, you're writing a very personal story. And I feel like a lot of people watching this and listening to this are going to say, they have a story that's personal to them and they don't know how to get it on paper. And beyond hiring writers who helped you get it out there, what do you think is the key to finding, like, how did you narrow down and niche down to go, okay, this is how I'm going to tell this story? Or is it kind of just dumb luck that you stumbled upon it?
Well, I had the idea that this character was going to go through all the stages of grief. So I had a built-in guideline with just the stages of grief. So then I went through and thought of potential scenes for each stage. Nice. And it's just picking one important scene, because I feel like when we have our ideas for a story, we have some sort of scene that we're like, yeah, that's going to kill.
Yeah, that's usually what starts the idea to make the film. Absolutely.
Yes. So like, write that scene. And that for me gave me permission to not have a beginning and an end figured out already, because it was like, I got to have it all figured out. And you don't. And good is better than perfect. Done is better than good. Like, it's like, just get it on the paper. And just writing out even lines from scenes helped build the puzzle.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I also feel like it's really smart that you, not only did you write out, you had an idea for scenes, but when you write it down, and then especially if you're going to go hire a writer, it's kind of helpful to go, here's the voice, here's the style. Can you get with this? Can you build from this? Because hiring writers is really hard. It's really hard for them to understand the voice. So that's really smart.
And that's so true. And if the people that I was interviewing didn't quite get that tone or that voice or kind of what I was going for, then it's not a good fit. Just like an actor auditioning for a role. It's not that you're bad or don't have something to offer. It's just not the best fit.
All right. So we have 10 minutes left. If anybody has questions, please get them in. Let's move into post now. As a first-time producer who is also starring in this, your face is in every shot. How did you handle post? Did you let your editor kind of give you a rough? Did you?
Yes. And as someone who is so picky and tedious about the timing of editing and it was a lot of control to give over. But I trusted Kevin and Megan and their relationship together. And so I really did kind of hand it over and let them give me a really long cut. And then I went through time frame, like minute by minute with notes and ideas and suggestions or questions. Like, why did you do this? And then it was such a collaboration.
Notes are hard when you get a first cut, especially if you've never, I remember the first time I ever got a rough cut. I literally cried. I was like, this is not the movie that I notes are tough from those rough cuts. So I do feel like it's important to hire an editor you trust and who gets your work. But I also like that you said you were giving questions instead of being like, this is bad, don't do this. You're like, why was your choice here? So I think that's a very good thing to point out.
Because so many times they would say, well, because of this, or this. And it's like, that's brilliant. Yes. Yeah. I never thought of that. And we can delete that from the script because now we've just shown it to the audience. So yeah. And also Megan and Kevin are so easy to work with. But yeah, I want to know the why behind things. And I always had the ending. The ending was always this one thing. And in the cut, it was a different ending. And I was like, okay, tell me more about this. And I said, can we just look at the footage? I want to see the footage. And they, I think, were like, probably like, don't let Sarah see the footage because I'll want to like pick it apart or something. But Megan said, this is a hill Kevin will die on. That ending didn't work once we saw the footage. And I was like, say no more. Like, if you're going to go that far and say that it's a hill, I trust that. Let go, let them do their job. It's hard.
So now watching the film probably a million times at this point, do you feel like you guys have made the right choice on the ending? Do you still feel like you would have loved to have seen the other ending?
I still haven't seen the footage even of the other ending. So it's hard to answer because if I saw the footage and I would hope that I would be like, oh yeah, you're right, it doesn't work. But I've grown to like this ending. It's just a little bit of a different ending. But it gives the same, I think, feeling, which is what I want.
I mean, since I don't know there was any alternative, I liked the whole movie as a whole. And I remember feeling kind of good at the end, which is what you really kind of want in this movie. So I'm going to say good choice.
Thank you. Good job, Megan and Kevin. Yeah.
Die on that hill.
Yeah. No, I want people to leave feeling hopeful and seen, because we often see a lot of movies about those who we've lost to suicide and not many stories about those left behind. And that's what this is about. So I hope some people feel seen.
I think so. And I think even if you haven't lost somebody, like I mean, I've never lost anybody, knock on wood, and I still related and still loved it. So I think it's great.
Thank you. Everyone has lost something. Like maybe not a person. It might be a relationship or, a job, a dream, So I think everyone can relate
for sure
in that way.
Gregarious, cute name. What has been the most rewarding part of the filmmaking process and the reactions to the film? What a great segue into festivals, because now audiences have seen it. What have the reactions been like? How are you handling watching it with other people? Are you hiding in your seat? Are you
interesting? Gray, thank you for the question. It has been so rewarding. All of the hard work paid off in choosing who I wanted to work with, because that made everything. And I am so proud of it. One question after a Q&A at a festival was, do you feel differently about your brother after this process?
Whoa.
And that's what I said. I was like, whoa.
Just got chills.
I was like, I haven't thought of that. And the answer is no, I don't think so. But I feel differently about my grief. Oh. And I feel a lot more open and like authentic with my grief, and that it's easier to talk about and to share. And I'm even more okay. I give myself even more permission to let my mind and heart go wherever it goes with grief, instead of trying to, oh, it's been 20 years. I should be like, man, it's fine. Oh, obviously not. So yeah, I'm really proud of it. There were some really difficult scenes, but again, those people that were surrounding me on set was everything.
This could be the first time I tear up on a podcast. So that's
that
says a lot about the film, though. I think that you found a way to perform this film in a way that brings both the light and the dark in a way that's completely palatable throughout the whole thing. It's very well made.
Thank you. That was the goal. I wanted it to be palatable and not too disturbing.
Yeah.
But it is disturbing, you know?
But it doesn't feel it, which is why it's
not
great.
Too much.
And you guys are now doing a bunch of festivals. What is your next plan for your short film? I know a lot of times filmmakers always ask me, what do I do with my short film after festivals? Do you have thoughts on that?
This is a movie that could be made into a feature. And I'm totally open to that. I mostly want to move on to the next film, which is a comedy. Because after this, I'm like, it's going to be a comedy. But we are very into the festivals right now. And that, it's so vulnerable. Our LA premiere is this week on Thursday. And it is going to be the first time that so many of my friends and family are going to see it. And I'm nervous and very excited to we make something, we want someone to see it. We want an audience for our work. So I'm thrilled about that. It's just a very vulnerable feeling.
Yeah. I don't think you ever get used to premieres. I don't care if it's strangers. It doesn't matter. It's always nerve-wracking. Like, are they going to love it? Because you want people to love it. If people want to go join you on Thursday to see the movie, how can they get tickets?
Yeah, it's the LA Shorts International Film Festival. It's on Thursday, the 20th at 7:30 p.m. at Regal at LA Live. And there is information on the website right here with a link for tickets, which you can get at lashortsfest.com. We're program 5. And so they would need to go to program 5 and buy tickets there.
And if you guys go, make sure you go and say hi to Sarah and tell her how amazing it was, because filmmakers want to hear that. And I think sometimes audiences, they see you at a festival like, oh, they're busy talking. No, come up. We need to hear it because we're too busy being neurotic about it.
We're very, we need validation. So please come up, tell me all the thoughts and feelings, and definitely don't leave without saying hello if you do go. And feel free to ask questions in the Q&A. Anything goes.
So for our last question, this is great because I was going to talk to you about distribution as well. Dave asks, have you found that there's a life after the festival circuit for Hangman? Are there distribution possibilities? Have you looked into this at all?
We have looked into it, and the contract we used for SAG is not a part of the strike, which is why, and they're encouraging us to continue to go to the festivals and red carpets and Q&As. So right now, any kind of distribution is on pause in my head to support the strike, but it's an option, and I want to talk to more people about it. And I think this is a film that could be relatable all around the world. So yeah, very interested. Don't have anything in the works. But we're kind of just getting started on our festival journey. So, I'm hoping to meet some people that can maybe help with that or be a part of it.
I would say for this film in particular, if Gaiam is still doing their shorts distribution, they used to do a DVD distribution where they would put shorts on it. You should absolutely look into them because they will pay you for this kind of movie. It's perfect for them. Also, there's always the distribution models that are through just to get your eyeballs out there. So Amleto and some of these other shorts things that you'll be looking into. And then the final thing I was
great things about Amleto.
Yeah, I mean, they get your film out there. Like, you're going to get a lot more eyeballs than if you just put it on your own channel.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I have considered in the past, but never fully pulled the trigger on, is doing my own distribution for a short film collection. So if you find other films that are sort of feel-good films, not like all, grief related, that's a depressing, set, but some feel-good movies that kind of fit with your theme, maybe, you guys can actually put that out yourself through any of the streaming, like a lot of different streaming channels can do that. So there's a lot to think about when it comes to short film distribution.
Yes. What did I tell you? Jen Jen knows it all. She's so resourceful, has so much information, and I will definitely look into that because I honestly haven't, and have been kind of so busy in the festival process that
Well, the one thing I want to encourage you and all the filmmakers who are watching and listening is don't let your film die with the film festival circuit ending. Don't let it die on YouTube or you just throw it up. There's so many options for you to get more eyeballs after the fact. And that's why you've made your film, to share the journey, to affect people. So do not just throw your film away after the festivals, thinking it's done, because it's not. Also, you do not have to wait to put your film online. So if you wanted to go with Omeletto now, even though you're still doing festivals, you're absolutely allowed to do that. I think that people think that it's like a feature, but it's not. So just know that filmmakers going in.
Great to know. It's a constant learning curve. So thank you.
Is there any final thoughts as we wrap up here on the filmmaking process? Your short film experience. What maybe some thoughts on what you're going to do different this next film?
Good question. I know who I want to work with, which is great. And really one of the biggest, components to it. I will be easier on myself on writing a script. It doesn't have to be perfect. This whole process has taken about 2 years. Because it took like 4 months to prepare for fundraising, and then a month for fundraising, and then planning for pre-production, and it's taken a really long time. Next time, hopefully it won't take that long because I'll have experienced it all. But people say, make what you know, write what you know. I've always heard that, but it never really clicked until I did this, because it's like, oh, right, no one else can tell this story. This is my grief story and journey. This is what it looks like. No one else can do that. So when they say, do what you, write what you know, it's really important to do that, because no one else can tell that story. And those stories need to be heard.
Yep. And when someone tells you that story's been done before, every story's been done before, but my story hasn't been. So I love that you said that. That's great. In wrapping up, Neymatic Frames, you're asking about the post-festival options. We did a whole panel, I think 2 years ago or something, on short film distribution. So I will try to link to that here for you, but also you can probably search it on the Blackmagic page. So hopefully that's helpful. We probably could do a new updated one too, post-pandemic, because things change all the time.
All the time.
Sarah, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us, both here in this half hour and in your film. I hope everybody watches it and supports it. If you can't go this Thursday, follow the film so you know when it's going to be online to screen it or screen in your area. And we'll see you guys next time.